Every airplane, the minute it lands and gets into its landing spot, has 7 chains on it. Now, here's your 19-year-old with a chain bag that's got 7 chains on it that will run about 30 feet of chain with a big lock device on it. He locks the device into a pad eye and then latches it down tight so that the plane cannot move in any axis. The carrier is yawing, it's dipping, it's coming up. Depending on the sea state, it could be rising and all of a sudden drop down 20 feet. So you've got to make sure that aircraft does not move, it doesn't roll, it doesn't yaw, it doesn't dip. And if you have a rough sea state, you can actually have the bow, and I've seen this on the Charlie 27s where they had the centerline elevator on the Bonnie Dick. It actually went down, which raised the fantail. The pilot had to shoot up out of the way. It went in so deep into the sea state that the waves came over the bow, went down the elevator, which was down at the hangar level, and gave us a 4-foot wave through the hangar deck. So things are happening out there all the time. When you're in a combat area, you have bombs all over up there. They have what they call bomb alley along the outside on the starboard side of the island structure where they arm and fuse the bombs. And then the ordnance gang take these out on a skid and lift them and hook them into the pylons on the airplane. So they're out there with the bomb skids and they lift 250 and 500-pound bombs by hand. The 1,000-pounders, they have to bring their other device out and they have to jack it up to snap the bomb into a shackle. When the jets release those bombs inside the pylon, and the pylon could carry as many as 6 or 9 500-pound bombs. And they're all fused and shot off by shotgun shells that are in the pylon. Boom, the bomb is ejected away from the airplane so that it doesn't hit the fantail or bounce up and hit the bottom of the aircraft. So you got the ordnance gang running around up there in addition, and the guy running the starter jet has to make sure he doesn't aim that starter jet, because it's a hot jet engine that is blasting hot air, on a bomb. That's what happened to one of the carriers out there. The guy, the 19-year-old running the starter jet, put it in such a position that the ordnance gang had to bail out, and it blasted 500-degree temperature on the bomb, which exploded, and that caused something like 35 aircraft to be lost and burned, and lost about 200 guys, got burned up on the ship. So when you ask me, is it a hazard? You can bet your butt it's a hazard. I had one more serious thing happen to me up on the flight deck. My position on the launches was up on the bow between the 2 cats. The angle cat was over here, the 2 cats shooting forward. This is again on the Coral Sea. And I would center myself up in the middle so that I could see if anything was going to happen on either airplane that we were going to launch. My line chief was on the other cat, so he could watch. And we had to make sure, because sometimes our maintenance was on the way to finish up the paneling and everything to get to the cat. So I had to give the cat officer a yup or down, and they would shoot the airplane off. So I'm up there in the middle. I've got directors, yellow shirts on each side. I got a catapult guys on each side. And then you got the guys that hooked the airplane up. Now, in that time frame, you had a cable system that hooked 2 hooks underneath the aircraft at the beginning of the wing. These guys would run under the airplane while it's turning up, snap these cables onto it, and then that would hook onto the shuttle of the catapult. The early catapults were hydraulic, and they would spring leaks and everything, and they didn't have a lot of power, and they eventually got the good idea from the Brits, and they used steam power. Steam, which was much safer. If it leaked, you just saw a steam cloud. It didn't matter, because they had enough steam cranking up there to actually run the catapult. The catapult, you have to think of having chambers about every 6 feet. And you have live steam in this piston, which is blasting forward by that pressure. The pressure is set up for the weight of the aircraft. So when that steam hits it, it pushes that shuttle forward, slow to start with, and then the next chamber's got the heavy in it and pushes it again, and the next chamber pushes it. So it goes boom, 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 until it gets the final, when it gets a real hard push. The crew sitting in it have to lean way back, get braced, because when they get that shot, it's about 1,000 times greater than the E-ride at Disneyland. And if your head is forward, it will knock you unconscious. I've had about 6 shots off of a carrier, and I know exactly how it hurts. And landing is the opposite. If you are not strapped in real tight and you hook that wire, you're going to go from approximately 150 miles an hour down to stop in 600 feet. So it's boom. If you haven't got your straps tight, when you take a shower, you will see the outline of them. They will burn hell out of you. So flight deck operation, I was up there in the middle of the island. I had an F4, and the F4 nose gear has 2 wheels on it, one on each side of the strut. When the cable goes to pull that airplane down so that it could launch, one of those wires, not the wire, but one of the tires broke off the hub, shot across the flight deck, missed me by inches, hit the director that was next to me right here, flipped him about 20 feet in the air, broke both of his legs, bones sticking out, landed right next to me. He turned to me, and I was trying to get him to stay down, and he was trying to get up on those broken legs, and he kept saying, "I'm okay, Chief, I'm okay." I got him down, and about that time, they got the Red Cross guys in the white shirts out there, and I had to run over the side and relieve my guts. I had blood all over me, and we had to stop the flight operations for about a half hour, and then they flushed the blood away, and we went on with it. I got to change clothes before I went back up there. The modern day jet, they no longer use steam catapults. They are using electromagnetic catapults. The first one is due to come off of the next carrier off the line. I forget the name of it. My memory fails me because I wasn't part of, the only nuclear carrier I was on was the Enterprise, which was the first nuclear carrier. And when they first built the ship from scratch, they used all of the components that they stole off of the Charlie class to reduce the cost of it. In other words, all the toilets that were used and all the bunks and all of the various paraphernalia that was taken off the Charlie class as they decommissioned them were put on to the Coral Sea class and the Midway and the Roosevelt. Those three were the only class there. And the nuclear follow-ons were all new stuff. They learned their lesson about using all the old stuff because it gave them a lot of old trouble. All of the scuttlebutts. The scuttlebutt in Navy language is a fountain, the drinking fountain. And the scuttlebutts they used were old. The cooling plant in it didn't work, and it tasted like metal. So I'd like to go back to my first jet ride, which was back when I was in VR-32, the Ferry Aircraft Squadron. And it was a T-2V, which was one of the first Navy jets to be tried on the ship. It had straight wings and had two 300-gallon tanks on the wingtip that looked like torpedoes. I had enlisted pilots, and my pilot that day happened to be a first class, and he had flown this aircraft out of the plant to us, and we were checking out some of the other enlisted pilots to fly the jet. It was new to everybody. We had a few problems with it, a few accidents. Nothing flight accidents, but maintenance accidents. When he landed, he told me that he was having a fluctuation in his electrical system, and the electrical system was all DC, 24 volt at that time on that airplane. And his electric gauge was going on and off at altitude. So when he landed, I got a call, go out, see what you can do with it, get it fixed, because I don't want people flying it. As soon as you get to altitude, you have no electrical power. So it had a battery in it. The battery started. I couldn't find anything wrong with it. I turned it up. I ran it for an hour or two. I did everything possible to it to try to get the thing to fail. I put a dead battery in it, and it generated perfect. So I went in and I signed it off. And he said, no, we're not going to do anything until you get in the back seat and go up with me, and I'll prove to you. So I got my meters and stuff. I got my flight suit and everything, and it was a beautiful warm day in San Diego, so I didn't take my flight jacket. And I'm up there, and the first thing he does is go to 28,000 feet.